I was born first, which is a crime in a palace where power fears gentleness more than rebellion. From the moment I could walk, they told me the crown was mine by law, but the court never believed in laws. They believed in fear. And I did not inspire it. My name is Kalian Valcrest, firstborn of Queen Seraphine, heir to the Sun Throne. The people called me the Merciful Prince. They said it like praise. The court whispered it like a sentence. I ended executions. I commuted punishments. I ordered bread instead of blades. When rebels were dragged before me in chains, I looked them in the eye and asked why. That alone made the generals uneasy. A ruler who listens is harder to control than one who kills. Only one person in that palace understood me, my twin sister, Elora. She shared my face but not my fate. Where I spoke openly, she observed silently. Where I resisted tradition, she memorized it. We were raised together, yet shaped for opposite ends of the same knife. At night, when the palace slept, we would sit on the high balcony and watch the city lights flicker like distant stars. "They don't want you on that throne," she once said quietly. I smiled and told her I didn't care. I lied. Our mother watched us from the marble shadows. Queen Seraphine ruled not with warmth, but with order. She believed love weakened dynasties and mercy shortened reigns. When she looked at me, I saw disappointment wrapped in silk. When she looked at Elora, I saw calculation. And then there was Lord Regent Malric, my uncle by blood and my opposite by nature. He commanded the army, and the army worshipped him. Where I hesitated, he advanced. Where I was spared, he was buried. He smiled often, but his eyes never did. The accusation came on the morning of the coronation rehearsal. The banners were already hanging. Gold and white. Valcrest colors. My colors. The High Justiciar stepped forward, voice echoing through the hall of witnesses, and read charges I had never heard before. Treason, conspiracy, attempted destabilization of the crown. The words fell like ash. I looked at my mother. She did not look back. I looked at Malric. He bowed his head, hiding his smile. I asked for a trial. The hall laughed softly, the way educated people do when something is already decided. Queen Seraphine finally spoke. "You will not be executed," she said, her voice calm, ceremonial. "You will not be exiled." Hope flared in me. Brief. Foolish. "You will undergo the rite of exposure," she continued, "so the kingdom may see what mercy makes of kings." Chains closed around my wrists. Elora gasped. I caught her eyes one last time as they dragged me away. There was no hatred in her expression. Only fear. As the palace doors shut behind me, I understood something too late. They were not afraid I would rule poorly. They were afraid I would rule differently. They built the tower in a single night. By dawn, it stood in the center of the Capitol Plaza like a wound made of glass. Tall, narrow, flawless. Transparent on all sides. No shadows. No corners to hide in. A monument not to justice but to spectacle. The priests called it purification through witness. The crowd called it mercy. They marched me through the streets at sunrise, barefoot and bound, while the city woke to see its prince reduced to a procession. I heard whispers trail behind us like smoke. "Is that him? He looks thinner. He deserves worse." The tower door opened with a hiss, smooth and silent. Inside, the air was already warm. I stepped in, chains removed, and the glass sealed behind me with a sound like a held breath finally released. No bars. No locks. Just visibility. Above the tower hung a set of ceremonial bells, 7 of them suspended from a bronze frame. Each bell represented a royal mercy. Water, bread, shade, rest, medicine, silence, and sleep. Each could be rung once per day. They gave the honor to my sister. Elora stood at the base of the tower, dressed in white, her hands trembling as the high priest recited the rite. If she rang the bells as instructed, I would live. If she hesitated, I would learn what mercy cost. When the sun reached its peak, the first bell rang. Water slid down a narrow channel and pooled at my feet. Warm. Barely enough to wet my lips. The crowd applauded. By noon, the heat pressed down like a living thing. The glass magnified it, trapping the sun inside with me. Sweat soaked my clothes. My thoughts slowed. The air tasted thin. I pressed my palm against the glass. It burned. Outside, merchants sold fruit. Children laughed. Life continued. When the second bell rang, a piece of bread dropped into the tower. Dry. Crumbling. I ate it slowly, forcing myself not to choke. I could see Ellora's reflection in the glass, her face pale, eyes locked on mine. She rang the bells precisely as commanded. Not out of obedience. Out of love. On the third day they stopped ringing the bell for shade. The priest declared it unnecessary. On the fifth day rest was removed. Sleep came in broken fragments, interrupted by chanting, by laughter, by the sound of the city enjoying itself. Malric came at night. He stood close enough that his breath fogged the glass. "Do you know why this works?" he asked softly. "Because if we killed you they would mourn. But this." He gestured to the crowd gathered even after dark. "This teaches them what kindness earns." I wanted to strike the glass. I wanted to scream. Instead I stood. Days passed. My skin blistered. My voice cracked. My thoughts began to fracture. I started speaking to reflections that moved half a breath too late. Still I lived. Because every day Ellora rang the bells. And every time she did, I saw it cost her more than it cost me. As the crowd grew bored and the sun climbed higher, I realized the truth of the rite. It was not meant to kill me. It was meant to make me disappear while breathing. By the 10th day, the crowd no longer came to curse. They came to observe. Suffering, I learned, is only entertaining when it is fresh. After that, it becomes routine. Merchants passed the tower without slowing their steps. Children stopped pointing. The bells rang and no one applauded anymore. I became part of the city's architecture. My body adapted in ways I didn't know were possible. Hunger dulled into a constant ache. Thirst sharpened my thoughts until every drop of water felt like a gift and an insult at once. The heat no longer shocked me. It pressed down steadily, patiently, like a hand waiting for my spine to bend. It never did. Priests visited daily to record my condition. They spoke loudly so the crowd could hear. "Still alive," one would announce, disappointment hidden behind ritual calm. The gods continued to test him. I stopped praying. At night, when the plaza emptied, my mind turned against me. The glass reflected my shape endlessly, front, back, side, dozens of versions of myself staring with hollow eyes. Sometimes they moved when I didn't. Sometimes they smiled. That was when Malric returned. He came alone, carrying no torch. Moonlight outlined him like a blade. He circled the tower slowly as if inspecting livestock. "You endure better than expected," he said. "That worries the court." I said nothing. Speaking wasted moisture. He stopped directly in front of me. "You think silence is dignity," he continued. "But silence is permission. While you stand here rotting, laws are being rewritten. Your mercy is being erased." I met his eyes. He leaned closer. "Did you know execution was debated?" I argued against it. "I told them death would make you legendary." He smiled thinly. "This makes you instructional." The next morning something changed. The bell for medicine did not ring. My skin cracked open under the sun. Infections bloomed quietly. Flies gathered. The priests called it a lesson in humility. The crowd barely reacted. I swayed on my feet that afternoon. For the first time, fear crept in, not of death but of breaking. Of begging. Of becoming exactly what they wanted me to be. Below the tower, Ellora stood rigid. Her hands shook when she reached for the bells now. Each ring echoed longer, heavier. I could see the strain in her posture, the way her shoulders curled inward like she was carrying my weight herself. That night I heard her cry. Not loudly. Not openly. Just a sound that slipped out when she thought no one could hear. That sound hurt more than the sun. On the 14th day, Malric brought news. "They've chosen a future," he said casually. "One that doesn't include you." I watched his mouth move, slow and deliberate. "Your sister is to be consecrated," he continued. "A sacred union. Political. Permanent. She will serve the crown better than you ever could." My heart stuttered. "She doesn't know yet," he added, turning away. "But she will. Soon." That night I tried to scream. Nothing came out. As dawn broke over the city, I realized the truth they had been waiting for. They were not testing my body. They were waiting for my soul to ask permission to leave. The morning began without sound. No footsteps. No chanting. No bells. Sunlight crept over the plaza and poured into the tower, sharp and unforgiving. I stood waiting, throat raw, eyes fixed on the bronze frame above me. The bell for water was always first. It never failed. Until that day. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The heat rose and my mouth filled with dust. I pressed my forehead to the glass and searched the plaza below. Ellora was not there. Panic surged, fast and violent, burning hotter than the sun. I beat my fist against the glass. The sound was dull, swallowed. No one turned to look. Merchants set up stalls. Guards joked. The city moved on, indifferent to the absence that mattered most. At last the high priest arrived. He stood where Ellora usually stood, his hands folded calmly. "The bells will not be rung today," he announced to the small gathering. "The rite continues without interference." I shouted then. My voice scraped out in broken fragments. "Where is she?" He did not answer me. He addressed the crowd. "Royal atonement requires balance. One mercy removed for every sin remembered." I understood before he said it. "She has been taken," the priest continued. "Prepared. Elevated. Prepared. Elevated." Sacred words for a filthy truth. Malric arrived shortly after, armor gleaming, expression almost bored. "You should be proud," he said, raising his voice so others could hear. "Your sister has been chosen." "Chosen for what?" I demanded, my knees buckling. "For permanence," he replied. "A binding union. One that will secure the realm." My chest tightened. I saw Ellora in my mind, quiet, observant, never cruel. I imagined her dressed in ceremonial white, her hands shaking, her voice silenced by duty. I laughed. Came out wrong. Drat. Crack. Almost hysterical. Queen Seraphine appeared at last, framed by guards and priests. She did not look at me as a son. She looked at me as a failed equation. "You have cost this family enough," she said. "Your sister will restore what you weakened." "Let her go," I whispered. "Punish me. Kill me. But leave her out of this." She tilted her head slightly. "You misunderstand. This is mercy." Something inside me tore. I had bent. I had endured. I had stayed silent so she wouldn't suffer. And still they took her. The sun reached its highest point. The bell frame cast long shadows, empty and mocking. I looked upward, past the glass, past the palace spires, into the pale sky where the gods were said to dwell. I felt nothing. No presence. No comfort. No justice. "They watched," I said aloud. "All of you watched." The crowd murmured. The priest stiffened. "I prayed to you," I continued, voice growing steadier. "I believed in balance. In law. In mercy." I pressed my palm against the glass, blood smearing beneath it. "You allowed this." The sky did not answer. So I turned my back on it. I dropped to my knees and spoke to the ground beneath my feet, to the stone below the palace, to the forgotten dark where no gods listened. "If anything still hears," I said, my voice breaking open, "take what remains of me." The glass beneath my knees cracked. And something far below the palace stirred, ancient and awake. The glass did not shatter outward. It collapsed inward. A thin fracture spread beneath my knees, glowing faintly as if the stone itself had inhaled. Before I could scream, the floor gave way and I fell, not into darkness but into silence so complete it stole the sound from my breath. The heat vanished. Cold swallowed me whole. I struck stone hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. For a moment I lay still, convinced my body had finally broken. But the pain receded quickly, unnaturally, as though something beneath the palace refused to let me die yet. Dim light bloomed around me. I was in a vast chamber carved deep into the earth, its walls blackened as if by ancient fire. Thrones lined the circular hall, dozens of them, each cracked, scorched and abandoned. Ash lay thick across the floor, undisturbed by time. This was not a crypt. It was a court. Footsteps echoed that were not my own. Figures emerged from the ash, forming slowly, painfully, like memories dragged back into shape. Kings and queens long erased from history. Princes who never reigned. Regents whose names had been struck from stone. Their eyes burned, not with flame, but with recognition. "You lasted longer than most," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "That means you are still useful." I tried to stand. My legs shook but they held. "Who are you?" I asked. "We are what remains when mercy fails," the voices replied. We are the Ash Covenant. Images flooded my mind, royals silenced by ritual law, erased not by execution but by procedure. Lives dismantled carefully so the crown could remain pure. They had been punished not for treason but for being inconvenient. For centuries, the voices continued, we have waited beneath the palace that buried us. Bound by law. Sustained by injustice. I clenched my fist. Then give me power. The ash stirred. Power? One of the figures stepped closer, her face half burned, half regal. You misunderstand us. Power corrupts quickly. Endurance lasts longer. What do you want in return? I demanded. They circled me slowly. Nothing you haven't already lost. The air grew heavy. The chamber dimmed further. You will not die until royal blood is judged, they said. No blade will finish you. No hunger will claim you. No fear will break you. Hope flared, brief, dangerous. But, they added, you will lose what made you human. Mercy. Doubt. Rest. I thought of Elora. Of her hands trembling at the bells. Of her silent obedience. Do it, I said. Ash surged upward like a tide. It wrapped around my arms, my chest, my throat. It burned, not like fire but like memory being scraped away. I screamed until my voice was torn raw. When the ash receded, I was still standing. Changed. The pain in my body was gone. The weakness too. In its place was a steady, cold clarity that frightened me more than the heat ever had. A final voice whispered close to my ear. You were not meant to escape the tower. I looked upward toward the palace ceiling far above. I didn't, I replied. I shed it. Far above in the plaza the bells began to ring. And this time no one was touching them. The first scream came at dawn. It was not loud. It did not echo through the streets. It died quietly behind stone walls where no crowd gathered and no priest could declare meaning. Lord Halvrin, one of Malric's most loyal captains, was found in his chambers with his armor still strapped to his chest. No wound marked his flesh. No poison stained his lips. Yet his body had collapsed inward, as if something heavy had pressed him from the inside until breath itself surrendered. By midday the bells rang. Not the ceremonial bells of mercy but the city bells, confused, uneven, rung by trembling hands. Whispers spread faster than sound. By nightfall another general vanished. This one was discovered kneeling before the throne in the Hall of Witnesses, head bowed in eternal obedience. His eyes were open, wide and glassy, staring at something no one else could see. Ash filled his mouth. Malric sealed the palace. He doubled the guards. Lit every corridor. Burned incense meant to ward off spirits. Priests chanted until their voices broke. None of it mattered. I walked through the palace unseen. Not because I hid, but because they no longer knew how to see me. The Ash Covenant moved with me not as shadows but as pressure. The air thickened where I passed. Torches dimmed. Stone remembered things it had tried to forget. I stood outside the council chamber as Malric raged inside. This is not rebellion, he shouted. This is ritual sabotage. Find the source. His advisors trembled. One tried to speak of ancient law. Another mentioned the tower. Malric struck the table so hard it cracked. The prince is dead, he snarled. I made sure of it. I stepped forward. The doors opened on their own. Every voice died. They saw me then, not as I was but as I had become. My skin bore faint veins of gray, like stone beneath flesh. My eyes held no fever, no desperation. Only certainty. Someone screamed. Malric's hand went to his sword. It shook. You, he whispered. This is impossible. Impossible is a comfort word, I replied calmly. You use it when the law fails you. The Ash Covenant pressed closer. The chamber darkened. Advisors collapsed, clutching their chests as memories not their own flooded them. Executions justified, names erased, mercy denied. I walked past Malric without touching him. For weeks, I said, you taught the kingdom how long a man can suffer. I stopped beside the throne. Now, I continued, they will learn how long injustice echoes. That night the bells rang again. Not for mercy. For warning. Across the city, men who had signed my sentence woke screaming, choking on ash that had not existed moments before. Some survived. Some did not. All were marked. The people gathered in the plaza once more. But this time they did not cheer. They watched their palace. And for the first time the kingdom understood something had gone wrong. High above the city the glass tower still stood, empty, cracked, abandoned. And beneath it, something far older than fear had finally begun to judge. They crowned her at sunrise. No music. No celebration. Just the slow, deliberate ritual of inevitability. The palace gates were sealed. The city kept a distance while priests whispered blessings that tasted like lies. I stood among the pillars of the grand hall, unseen, watching Elora Valcrest kneel where no one should kneel unwilling. She wore the crown they had denied me, lighter than it looked, heavier than any chain. Her face was calm, composed in the way fear becomes when it has nowhere left to run. Malric stood behind her, one hand resting on the pommel of his sword. Queen Seraphine sat above them all, eyes sharp, unblinking. The line continues, the high priest proclaimed. Through sacrifice. Sacrifice. The words scraped through me. As the crown settled onto Elora's head, something inside my chest tightened, not pain but resistance. The Ash Covenant stirred, restless, impatient. And it, they urged. Royal blood has been judged. Finish it. I stepped forward. The hall froze. Gasps rippled through the court as they saw me, whole, standing, alive. Guards moved instinctively, then stopped as their hands refused to obey them. Malric's face drained of color. You can't be here, he said hoarsely. You're forgotten? I finished. So you hoped. I walked toward the throne, each step echoing like a verdict. Stop, Malric commanded the guards. His voice cracked. Touch him and you die. He turned to me, lowering his voice. You think you've won, but you've already lost. I halted. Elora looked at me then. Her eyes widened. For a heartbeat she forgot the crown. She forgot the court. She saw only her brother. Kalian, she whispered. Malric raised a hand. This crown, he said loudly, is not symbolic. It is binding. He drew a thin blade from his sleeve and pressed it against his own palm. One royal bleeds, he continued calmly, the other feels it. He cut. Elora cried out, clutching her hand. Blood welled in the same place. The court erupted in shock. Malric smiled, desperate and triumphant. You see? She is tied to us now. Any harm to me, any punishment, passes through her. The Ash Covenant recoiled in fury. I took a step back. For the first time since the tower, my certainty fractured. Elora shook her head at me, tears streaking her cheeks. Don't, she mouthed. Please. Queen Seraphine finally spoke, her voice steady. This is the law you defied. This is balance. I looked at my mother and felt nothing. Then I looked at my sister, and felt everything I had buried. Malric leaned closer, his breath shaking. You can destroy the kingdom, he whispered. Or you can watch her live. Choose. Silence crushed the hall. Slowly, deliberately, I lowered my hand. The Ash Covenant screamed inside me, furious, betrayed. Elora sagged in relief. Malric exhaled, victorious. But as I turned away, I spoke softly, only loud enough for him to hear. This isn't mercy, I said. It's postponed. And in his eyes, I saw fear return. Because for the first time he knew. I was still deciding how this story would end. The city waited for fire. It waited for stone to split streets, for ash to fall like snow, for the palace to collapse under the weight of its own sins. That was the ending they expected, the kind history prefers because it is simple and loud. I did not give them that. I stood at the edge of the grand hall as Malric escorted Elora away, his hand firm on her arm, his victory trembling but intact. The guards parted for him. They always had. Power recognizes its own reflection. Queen Seraphine watched me with narrowed eyes. She expected rage. She expected failure. She did not expect patience. That night the bells rang again. Not in warning. In remembrance. Across the city, names long erased resurfaced in whispers and dreams. Men woke knowing truths they had never been taught. Records cracked open. Seals failed. The Ash Covenant moved not through blood, but through memory. By morning the court was drowning in its own past. Documents appeared on altars and desks, unchangeable, undeniable, proof of ritual executions, forced successions, erased heirs. The law turned inward, consuming itself. The people gathered again in the plaza. This time they did not look at the tower. They looked at the palace. Malric tried to flee before noon. He did not make it past the outer gate. The guards stopped him, not because I commanded them but because they finally understood who he was. They dragged him into the square, shouting, spitting, tearing the symbols from his armor. Elora stood behind them, crown still on her head, her face pale but steady. She raised a hand. The crowd fell silent. "There will be no execution," she said, her voice carrying farther than she knew. "No spectacle. No ritual." Malric laughed, hysterical. "You can't touch me," he shouted. "I am bound." I stepped forward then, visible to all. "You are," I agreed. "But not the way you think." I placed my hand on the stone beneath us. The Ash Covenant answered, not with force but with law older than crowns. Malric's lineage unraveled. Not his life. His claim. His name vanished from royal record, from inheritance, from ritual. The bonds snapped, not through pain but through erasure. Elora gasped as the weight lifted from her chest. Malric collapsed, screaming, not in agony, but in terror as he realized what had been taken. He was alive, and no one would ever answer to him again. Queen Seraphine stood slowly. "Then kill me," she said coldly. "Finish it." I looked at her for a long moment. "No," I replied. "You will live knowing the throne ended with you." The crown slid from Elora's head and struck the stone, cracking in two. There would be no more Volcrest rulers. No throne to poison. No bloodline to weaponize. As the crowd dispersed, uncertain and changed, Elora approached me. "Come with me," she whispered. "We can rebuild." I shook my head gently. "I can't," I said. "I was made for endings." I turned away as the Ash Covenant loosened its hold, their purpose fulfilled. Behind me the palace stood. Ahead of me the road stretched empty and free. I left without a crown, without mercy, and without regret, because some stories are not meant to rule. They are meant to end what should never have existed.